Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy New Year's, the first official episode of the year. I hope everyone's new year is starting off good for them, and hopefully it will continue on throughout the rest of the year. So this month on the podcast, I'm kind of kicking off the year a little different, not so much on a upbeat, tick. It's a little bit different, especially if you listen to the opener and listen to the trailer that I played, and everything. And yeah, I'm doing Taxi Driver 1976. And this month I have dubbed it to be Loneliness, Violent, and the American Outsider. So that's pretty much what we're getting this month. We're getting some loners, some drifters, and some outsiders with some violence, especially in this movie in particular. So the reason why I decided to kick off the new year with Taxi Driver is because when you think about loneliness, a drifter, an outsider, and some violence, I think you kind of naturally think about Travis Bickle. I don't know, maybe you think about some other people, but he was the first one to come to mind. And I say, you know what? I'm going to kick off the year with this movie. This is not a movie that I rewatch a lot. I remember the first time I actually saw the movie was a few years ago. And, well, not a few years, more than a few years ago, actually. But it's one that I kind of randomly watch like every few years. And I recently rewatched it and I was like, you know what, maybe I'll kick off the year with this. Right. So, yeah, that's kind of the reason why I'm kicking off the year with this particular movie. And I feel like it's going to set the tone for the rest of the month in a way. So basically, just kind of set the tone and everything. Thinking about where Hollywood was in 1976 and in a way of where it is now. It's kind of like in a interesting position. You know, we're kind of leaving out of a certain era and going into a different era, and it's kind of similar to what was going on back in this particular point in time of the 70s. I mean, we're in going back to 76. I mean, you're a few years past the Vietnam War, and you started getting a lot of movies that wasn't necessarily about the Vietnam War, but it was more about guys who came back home and basically trying to reacclimate themselves into normal society. And Travis Bickle is one of those guys. I mean, he is a Vietnam veteran. Clearly, he's suffering from PTSD because he can't sleep, and he wants to be, driving late at night, and he have no problem going into the quote unquote bad areas of New York. And also too, looking at what New York looked like at the time. I mean, I don't know how people survived New York at this particular point in time. I've said this in a few other episodes, talking about this particular era of New York. I just don't know how people survive. So kudos to everyone who survived that era of New York where it was just grimy. And I mean, you had the pimps, the prostitutes, trash all over the streets and everything. It just looked insane. And a year after this is where you have probably one of the craziest times, not just in New York's history, but probably in American history, where not only do you have David Berkowitz, the son of Sam killer, terrorizing the streets, you have the blackout that happens, you have the I think it was the trash strike or whatever, so that's why you had trash all over the streets and everything. And it was just insanity, and this was all during the summer of 77, and everything. Also, Frank Lucas, he was, the American gangster, right? All that was going on around this time, and it's just madness all over the place. But I felt like it was a good way to kind of tie it into current times dealing with certain things and what was going on at a particular point in time in America's history at that time. this is not an easy movie. So, because I remember, like, say the first time I saw it, I probably had to be like in my mid 20s the first time I actually saw it. But I had always heard about it, but I never really watched it. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, ugh, this movie's dirty. Like, it's really dirty, and that's not even talking about like the streets just being filthy and everything like that. Like, no, you have a young girl that is a prostitute, and just how she talks and stuff like this, and then these grown men who have no problem. And it's like, this movie is like, what was Martin Scorsese really on at this time? I always kind of wondered, like, what the hell did he have going on? Because this is after, he hit it big with Mean Streets and everything, and this was the follow up to that. And it's like, what the hell was he on at that time? I mean, it's kind of a good thing that he kind of moved away from this particular style of, telling the story, and also style of New York. I mean, granted, of course, he kind of leaned more into the mafioso stuff and, and things like that. But still, you look at early Scorsese, I mean, it looked very grimy. And I mean, I guess it was a product of the time and everything. But so one thing about, so I want to talk about Taxi Driver in this sense of how, what it feels like rewatching versus the very first time I watched it. So on a rewatch, you kind of know what you're expecting with it, and you're kind of going along with what Travis has going on and the different characters that he meets along this insane journey that he's on. So you, like I say, you kind of know what to expect when you're rewatching the movie. First time you watching the movie, you really don't know what to expect. I mean, when he's driving around, and then of course he's narrating. But I will tell people this: like, Travis Bickle is not a trustworthy narrator, and everything, because you kind of wonder, like, okay, how, like, what is in his head and what is actually happening? Because again, he is suffering from PTSD, so we don't know fully to the extent of everything that is happening is actually happening to the degree of what we're seeing. And the reason why I even say that is the Martin Scorsese character who gets into his cab and asks him to drive him to this building, and then is like, no, leave the meter running. Come on, leave the meter running, and all this type of stuff. And then what he's going to do, because up in the second floor, you see a silhouette of this woman, and then she's meeting with her lover that she's having an affair with, because that's my Scorsese character's wife, and she's having an affair with this black guy and everything, and just how he's talking and everything. It's like, it makes you wonder. And I don't know, I kind of came to this conclusion, like, is he real, or is this someone in Travis's head of him just kind of making this up? And because ironically, the gun that the Scorsese character passenger guy has, that he says he's gonna kill his wife with, is a 44. Was it 44 or 45? I can't remember. But anyway, high caliber gun, a big ass gun or whatever. But it is the same exact one that Travis gets later on. And I don't know, it's like little things like, okay, is he a real person? And also too, there's a scene in the movie, and it's a real quick shot of when Travis is walking past the newspapers stand where Sybil Shepherd character works. Martin Scorsese's character is sitting there on the steps, and it's like, okay, is this supposed to be the same guy and everything, or again, is this a figment of Travis's imagination? And is this almost like the person that he kind of becomes when he decides to be Psycho Killer, right? Shout out to the Talking Heads for that reference. But I don't know, I just kind of came up with that thinking, like, was he a real person? Because, like I say, when you see him in the back seat of the cab, he's in this suit. The second time you see him, he's sitting on the stoop. He got like a tank top and everything. He just sit there casually, just sit there, and it's like, okay, the first cameo by Scorsese, okay, it kind of makes sense. But this second one, that one, I don't know. I'm not too sure about that. And everything. For everyone who's listening, let me know, what do you think? Do you think I'm kind of reaching with the Scorsese character being a figment of Travis' imagination, or is there some? Do you believe that it's possible that he is a figment of Travis' imagination in that particular moment, and everything? Um, this movie, it does still. I mean, it still sparks debates. I mean, 50 years later. I mean, the movie came out in 76. Here we are in 2026. So 50 years later, this movie is still, warrants discussions and think pieces about it. Henceforth, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm kind of doing the podcast now. It was one of the inspirations for Joker. They came out, ironically, Robert De Niro is in Joker. But you see quite a bit of similarities between Travis Bickle and Arthur Fleck, and everything. But it would have been interesting to see Travis walking down those steps doing a dance. But yeah, it's a movie that, like I say, you bring it up, you talk about it. There's a lot to kind of unpack from it. Like I say, the whole thing with Travis and his PTSD, and then once you introduce Iris to the whole situation, and it's basically like, I gotta save this young girl from this life, which it is a good thing that that's what he decides to do. But of course, this is after he decides, like, I think I'm gonna try to kill the presidential nominee first. But because that goes sideways, let me go save this girl instead and be considered like a vigilante Punisher type hero or whatever. I think it's kind of wild, like how that kind of swerves, or whatever. But because Travis is not a hero. Travis is not a good guy at all. Does he do a good thing? Yes, but it's only because the bad thing that he wanted to do fell through. So it's like, just go do something good, I guess. And who cares about some pimps and some, some sleazy dudes who having sex with a teenage girl? It's like, ooh, that's just gross. Faces. It's like, what the fuck is happening right now? And I'll bring it back again to the fact that, Travis Bickle is a interesting character in the sense of, like I say, he's not a hero. He's not an anti-hero. He's just this guy that's just kind of floating through life. He kind of checks off all the boxes. He's a loner. He's an outsider. Because when, like, the whole thing with him and Sybil Shepherd's character, like when they trying to take her out on a date and everything, and he thinks, oh, let me take her to this porn theater to watch pornos and everything. And he has no issue with the fact that that's what they're watching. And she's looking like, what the hell are we doing here? Or whatever. But he just has no problem because that's where he goes when he's not at work. He goes there and he just watching nasty movies, people, fumbling around in the dark, like it was at a Beetlejuice showing and everything. If you get that reference, you get that reference. And everything, but she's like, oh, why the hell did you bring me here and everything? And like, he has trouble talking with women. He doesn't fit in with the other cab drivers. Wizard, played by Peter Boyle, and everything. Who's, you know what? I'm gonna talk about him later, but I have some thoughts about the Wizard character, and everything. But Travis is just one of those guys who just kind of floating through life, and he kind of gets consumed by the environment that he's in, and I think that's one reason why he wants to kind of make a statement in his own twisted way. He wants to make a statement, and he wanted to make a statement by assassinating a presidential candidate, but he ends up making a statement by saving this young girl from prostitution, basically, and everything. And I mean, this movie is not a movie that anyone that refers to Taxi Driver as a cool movie or a badass movie is like, okay, what kind of insanity are you on? Because it's not that type of movie. And I don't understand people who even try to glorify Taxi Driver. I never understood that. Even before I actually saw the movie. And I, even more so after I watched the movie. It's like, why do people glorify this movie so much? I mean, is it a is it a good movie? It is. It's a good movie. It's a hard movie to watch. It's a very well made movie. And you feel like you're at that particular point in time, and you kind of feel almost like Travis in certain situations, and just how everything is kind of unfolding in the city around everyone. You kind of feel like you're right there with them. So I will give Scorsese credit, a lot of credit for that. But as far as saying like, oh, it's a cool, fun movie. Hell no, it's not a cool, fun movie. Anybody who sits around and says that is like, all right, I got to start second guessing you, Bubble. But yeah. So let's talk more about the Travis Bickle character. Um, like I said earlier, he is a reliable. He's an unreliable narrator. Like I say, we don't know um quite a bit of what is actually happening. Like if it's in his head or is it really playing out the way he sees it. Perfect example is at the end. When he's driving in the cab after everything is over. Is she really in the back seat of the cab, or is this in his mind that he just kind of hoped that was her in the back seat, and the conversation that they have, because he gives that kind of like little smirk or whatever, as if like, yeah, I know you're not really there, but it's kind of weird like that, right? So that's kind of why I say he's not a reliable narrator. And then you have this whole thing of loneliness and entitlement. Travis is a lonely person. Like, he is very lonely. And even when he does try to fit in, he fails miserably at trying to fit in. And everything. And then the whole entitlement. I mean, when you introduce Harvey Keitel as sport and everything, he feels very entitled. He just, is king shit and everything like that. And it's just nasty work in a lot of cases within the movie. And everything, but how they kind of play off of each other, and then eventually the loneliness and the entitlement, it does eventually come to a head with each other, and everything. And then like you have social alienation, and like there's a lot of people who actually alienate themselves, even still today. Like people, they alienate themselves, even when they're around people. They distance themselves. They kind of stay they kind of stay away in a way. They kind of stay on the outside of everything. So again, it's like outsiders, right? They stay on the outside. And then you have this whole thing of like self-ratification, which, like I say, Travis is trying to do something. He's trying to make a statement. Iris, she's an interesting character too, because it's like she's full aware of what's going on, and she's allowing things to happen to her, even though she's at such a young age and everything. But I always wondered, like, how did she end up there? How did she end up in New York? And because I think that her family, they're from Pittsburgh or something like that. I believe that's what it said when the letter is being read at the end and everything. That she's from Pittsburgh or whatever. So it's like, how the hell did she leave and end up in New York and end up with sport and the nonsense that they got going on? Like, how did that happen? But then too, this movie, it does, and I will say this because of the fact of Joker and like how people kind of latched onto that, and then because this movie is a inspiration to that movie, there is the whole romanticizing of isolation. Like, oh yeah, it's cool to be alone. Like, here's this guy sitting sitting in his apartment, leaned back in the chair, watching the TV. He's just kind of rocking back and forth, and he has this big ass gun in his hand, or he's talking to himself in the mirror. You talking to me? You know, that whole thing, right? So there is the kind of borderline romanticizing of this in a way. Um, Kind of similar to also like with the movie Fight Club, how people kind of latched onto that, and oh, we gonna have our own group, and we're gonna have our own group and all that type of stuff. So it's almost like I say the romanticizing of this type of life, basically. Um, Now I will ask this question. Like for anyone, I mean, you've seen the movie and everything clearly because you're listening to the episode. But is Travis a product of society, or of his own choices? Um, Me personally, I feel like he's a little bit a combination of both. Like, yeah, he's a product of PTSD, and he's trying to adapt to the way the world is now and everything. In 1976, he's trying to relate to the way the world is now, but also too, he chooses to, okay, I want to try to assassinate the presidential candidate. I want to be the hero for this girl, and everything. And basically, he wanted to kill some people, and some people end up getting killed. Not the people that he originally set out to kill, but some people was gonna get killed. And I mean, that finale is insane to watch. And it was ahead of its time with, like I say, with the slow mo, especially the overhead shot, the way it looked, almost like a freaking video game. Because I remember the first time I saw the movie, um, I thought that my DVD player, like the disc had froze or something until he shoots and it's like, you son of a bitch, that whole thing, um, and everything like that. But like I say, it's a very interesting thing, and it makes it again. It raises the question: is Travis, a product of the society around him? Urban decay. He's a loner. He's itching for something, and everything just kind of boils to a head until he ends up meeting up with Sport and like, I don't know no Iris, and next thing getting shot down and everything, and whatnot. But yeah. All right. So I did talk a little bit about Martin Scorsese and his style, and the way he uses New York as a character. Now, I know people talk about Woody Allen, how, I mean, he uses New York as a character also. Spike Lee is another one who uses the city of New York as a character. Well, in this, Scorsese uses New York as a character, but in a very grimy type of way. And everything, and it shows like the lives that these people are living is not the best type of lives, and you can understand why someone kind of goes a little crazy, especially someone like Travis, who's up all night, he's driving around, he's going to the bad neighborhoods, all different types of, people get in and out of his cab, and type of things like that. So it just kind of shows like this is what New York was like at that particular point in time, and it is a living, breathing thing within the movie. It's like as Travis's world kind of gets smaller, you feel like you're getting smaller right along with him, and everything. And the whole, like I say, that mirror scene, and then there's other moments of Travis kind of walking past the mirror. He's pacing, past the mirror, and it kind of shows like, okay, this is a reflection of where his mental state is. And as the movie kind of progresses along, we get like shots of him in the mirror, and then of course the whole, you talking to me? Well, I don't see nobody else standing here. You must be talking to me. And then, him practicing, drawing his guns and everything. It's like, at this point, he's kind of lost it pretty much. But the ironic thing about it is even though New York is kind of grimy looking in this movie, but there are some shots in this movie that are very well done, and they're very stylish, and and everything. One of my favorite shots, and it's almost kind of like a throwaway, but it's that scene on the street when Travis wanted to talk to the wizard, and the way they kind of have the red kind of, he's dripped in red, so I guess it's like he's dripped in the blood, right? And everything. But that's an awesome shot. Or like as the camera's panning by when the one dude walks past him, kind of gives him the finger gesture, and everything keeps moving, and how you kind of get it from Travis's point of view, but also you get it from the guy's point of view. So Travis is like watching him as he's walking away. He just has this look on his face, but it's just a cool, dope shot. And everything. And there's a few shots in this movie that's like that. Another one I don't think that gets talked about enough it's a quick shot when Travis is sitting in the car when Iris first tried to get in his cab. It's like, hey man, get me out of here. And then Sport comes up, and just the way he kind of turns and looks over his shoulder and kind of gives his glare, but you never see Sport's face at that particular point in time. But it's just the look that's on Travis's face. And I think that's kind of something that kind of clicked with him, about this young girl being in danger in a way. And I think that kind of stayed in the back of his mind, like he has to save her in some way. And everything. But like I said, there's a lot of cool shots in this movie, but those are just a few that kind of always kind of stick out to me. Anytime I rewatch the movie. Now, another shot that kind of stands with you is the scene when this is after Travis is pretty much, embarrassed himself with Sybil Shepherd's character after the whole porno theater thing, and he's talking on the phone in the hallway, and he's having the conversation. His back is to the camera, of course, and he's talking, and then out of nowhere, the camera just kind of shifts over and goes looking down the hallway, and it's always been meant to represent like this is so sad to see that even you, the viewer, should not be witnessing this conversation of Travis on the phone. And it's interesting, like how you get shots like that in Martin Scorsese movies. I mean, he's done that a few times in other movies, like kind of just move the camera away where you don't see it. It kind of makes you think also too. The Quentin Tarantino kind of pay homage to this in Reservoir Dogs when Mr. Blonde is cutting off the cop's ear, how the camera just kind of shifts away so you don't see it actually, and then he walks into the frame with the ear. It always kind of makes me think of that and everything. So it always kind of makes me wonder, did he borrow that from this movie or whatever? I don't know, but he probably did, because that is the Tarantino way, right? This movie, I've talked about it too because of the fact that you have the whole isolation thing or whatever and everything. This movie makes you feel like you're trapped, in this city, in Travis's head to a degree. You feel like you're trapped. Just the way everything is framed and the way it feels, it's like you're kind of trapped and you don't know how to get out. And you're just hoping that he figures a way to get out so you can get out when you're watching the movie and everything. Because again, you're pretty much in Travis's head and you're going along with everything that he has going on. But again, how much of it is in his head? How much of it is actually happening? And everything. So, like I say, it's one of those reoccurring questions I'm gonna ask. How much of this do you think was in his head as far as what you see versus what was actually happening in a lot of cases? Did that guy actually walk past Travis on the street and just kind of give him this look or whatever, or did he just kind of imagine it? You don't know with certain stuff in the movie, especially after the conversation that he's having with Wizard and everything. So let's talk about Robert De Niro's performance here, because Mean Streets might have been the movie that made people notice him, but I think Taxi Driver is where it's like, oh, this dude is on another level. The way De Niro kind of carries himself, he carries him, the way to walk and and just the way he looks and everything. the physicality that he puts in effort that he puts into this role, and everything. The voice, hey, I got some wild thoughts in my head, man, type of thing. Just the way he kind of carries it. And then the posture, like moments of, like most of the time he is like he's trying to hide from the world as he's walking down the street. And then there's other moments where, especially like when he's walking down the street drinking the beer and everything, it's like, okay, I'm out. I want everybody to hear me, see me, type of thing. But for the most part, he is kind of like in the midst of everyone. He's just kind of like crouching down in a way, like I don't really want to be seen. And then, of course, when he shaves his head to the mohawk, because at that time, the mohawk was not just a cool style. The mohawk was definitely known for, guys from Vietnam who, if they were going out on a real dangerous mission, going to assassinate, kill somebody basically, but a real dangerous mission, they cut their hair to a mohawk basically. So when he gets that, of course, he's basically getting battle ready because he's going on this mission. And of course, his mission was to assassinate the presidential candidate. But instead, he shifts that to go kill some pimps and, just some sleazy dudes that's, having sex with this young girl or whatever. But either way, he was going on a mission that he should not have come out of, basically, and everything. So let's talk about the supporting characters and what they represent, basically. So I mentioned a little bit about Iris. I mentioned a little bit about Wizard, and everything, and I mentioned a little bit about Sybil Shepherd character, Betsy, and everything. I mentioned a little bit about these characters, right? So let's see, how do I want to do this? Let's talk about the Betsy character and the idealization of her versus her not being a real person. So Travis of course, gets infatuated with her and everything. He wants to take her on a date. He wants her to be his girlfriend. But because Travis is so socially awkward, he goes about everything in the wrong type of way. But he does like has this. He has this version of her in his head that he wants, but is that really what she wants? Because I mean, the fact that he go busting into the office and everything, and the look that she kind of looks up at him, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, this is him being confident and everything. But just imagine you on your job and somebody come crashing in on you, and it's like, I want to take you out on a date and blah blah blah, and everybody looking like, who the hell are you, type of thing. But again, like I say, going back to Travis not being a trustworthy narrator and everything, how do we know that the way he asked her was the way we saw it and everything, and everything, and then like I say, coming back to at the end of the movie, is that really her in the back seat of the car, or is that in his mind of what we see? Like I say, because she's not a real person per se. She's a fictionalized version of who he thinks she is, and everything. So yeah, like I said, that character is kind of interesting in the fact that we don't spend a lot of time with her. It's like she comes in for a little bit and then she's pretty much gone. Her and Albert Brooks, there, like I said, they're in it for a while, but then they're gone, and everything. But also too, he does kind of use her in a way to get close to the presidential candidate to a degree, and everything. So let's talk about Iris, and how she becomes like some misplaced salvation for Travis. I mean, he wants to save her. She's a young girl who's a prostitute. She's very quick and everything like that. She's more confident to a degree than he is, but in his mind, I got to get you away from these pimps and everything like that. So it's like she becomes like his salvation. Like I guess he feels by saving her, he's saving a piece of himself, or he's saving himself in a way. Um, there's different ways to kind of interpret, the whole thing with Travis and Iris, and he, like I say, he think he's doing the right thing, and in some cases he is doing the right thing, but is he really doing the right thing? Of course, he's doing this all after the fact that he tried to assassinate somebody, um, and everything, and everything like that. So let's talk about sport. First of all, Harvey Keitel looking like the damn Godfather, and I'm talking about the wrestler, the Godfather, because he has on this tank top. He got the hat on, and he kind of he's talking jive, because I think I've read too that sport was originally supposed to be a black, was actually written to be black. So the fact that Harvey Keitel in some ways is playing it as if he's a black guy is just kind of ridiculous, but in a sense it kind of works, because how often did you see like a white pimp and everything? You didn't, especially in the 70s. I mean, I don't know anything about pimps like that, but I don't think you really saw too many white pimps, especially standing out on the corners and everything, the way he is, and everything. So it's almost like, okay, dude, they basically have him play it like it was written. They just changed the fact that he was white, not black, but he still pretty much played it as if he was a black character, and everything. But he kind of masquerades as being this very confident person. Now we do get to see this interesting moment with Iris and Iris and Sport, where Travis is sitting outside. He's looking up at the apartment, but then inside, they're kind of they're kind of slow dancing and everything. And again, is this really happening, or is this inside Travis's head? Is what he thinks that's actually happening with them, or is it actually happening with them? Well, I mean, we really don't know. But like I say, it's like one of those moments of where he's just not, he's not in character. He kind of took the mask off to a degree. He kind of, even though he's probably manipulating Iris, but it's still like a vulnerable type of a moment, not just for her, but also for him in a way, and everything. And the last character I talk about, of course, is Wizard, played by Peter Boyle, who, I mean, everyone kind of talks to him about things, or if they need advice or whatever, they talk to him. And when Travis tries to talk to him, because I remember I had this conversation with somebody, I'm like, Wizard really just kind of feeds Travis some BS in a way, because it's like, to him, he thinks that he's saying something that's profound and prolific, and he's trying to help Travis or whatever, but in reality, Travis really needed real help. And if Wizard was as smart as he thought he was, he would have noticed, like, no, there's something wrong with him. He needs some real help, opposed to the nonsense that he pretty much says to him. And then it's like, all right, I'm gonna pat you on the back and send you on your merry way. And it's like, no, you did not help this dude. Like, what are you doing? Like, you really just sat here and said some nonsense. And then you expect it, because I'm the wizard, and everything, what I said is the gospel, and everything's good now. And it's like, no, it wasn't good. It actually made things worse, to a degree. But then also too, like how all of these characters in a way, they kind of shape what we get of Travis. Let's say Betsy is the fantasy, of happiness that Travis sees himself. Iris is the salvation. It's like, well, basically, if I save her, I save my soul, type of thing. Sport is like, well, this is who Travis possibly could be, right? Because he carries himself with a lot of confidence. But at the same time, he has a mask on, but we don't really see it like that. But Sport does, like, all these characters kind of in a way represent a piece of who Travis is and what he wants, and how he kind of sees the world in a way. They all kind of represent a little bit of what's going on in his head, to a degree. So one thing about this movie too is the difference between reality and perception, and that's something that's kind of a running theme that I've been talking about here. Like I say, did 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 Travis witness black dude, not witness, but the whole gun down the black dude in the grocery store, and then the shop owner like is beating the body while Travis walk away? Did it really go down like that, or was this in his head? Like I say, there's a lot of stuff like, okay, what's in his head and what is the actual perception? I mean, does he meet Lucky Andy in the apartment? Well, yes, he clearly meets this dude because that's how he got the guns and everything. But is it fast, talking guy, blah blah blah? Is this how he actually is, or is this like a version of what Travis makes up in his head? We really don't know, which is why I keep coming back to Travis is an untrustworthy narrator of the story. Let's talk about the ending of the movie. So the ending, again, let's say when Plan A fails, I can't get close to try to assassinate the presidential candidate. Let me jump in my cab. Let me drive halfway around across the city and everything. Let me go find Sport and let me start, interrogating him about Iris, the pimp business and everything before he gets pissed, starts kicking him and everything. And then, like, oh yeah, well, suck on this. And he shoots him with the Derringer and all you hear is, oh, type of thing, which I always laugh at that. And then he goes inside. And from the moment he shoots Sport up until he sits down on the couch and gives like the finger bang to his head with the blood dripping, is probably some of the most insane stuff you probably ever see in a movie. Because he walks in, the old man that's kind of running the place comes up with his hands up. And before he can finish saying what he's saying, Travis then hauled off, pulled out that 45, and shoots the hell out of his hand, blow his fingers off. He starts yelling like a madman. They cut to where Iris in this like private eye is in the room, basically getting ready to, have sex or whatever. And they can hear the sound because that sound ricochets throughout the whole entire building. All right. And the old man kind of starts, you son of a, basically everything. And then, some way, somehow, Sport is not dead because he shoots Travis in the neck. Travis ends up turning around. He shoots him, finally kills Sport and everything. This fake private detective, whoever the hell he is, that was with Iris, he comes up because the old man is pretty much fighting Travis the entire time. He comes out trying to be a hero, and we know what happens to heroes. He ends up getting shot up, and everything. Actually gets shot all up in the face. But this is after he actually shoots Travis in the shoulder. But Travis pulls that Derringer out, shoots him like 5-6 times in the face, which is like insane. He falls back into the room dead. Like I say, all this whole time the old man is fighting Travis. And everything. And at this point, he's not even forming any word. He just because I guess he's in shock or whatever because all this blood loss. Because I think he only has his thumb and his index finger basically. Whatever. Iris is freaking out, so he ends up taking out his knife. He stabs him in the hand. Then he puts the gun under his chin and shoots him in the head. Iris is like, no, she's crashing out basically. Travis tries to kill himself, but he got no bullets. Nobody has any bullets left, so he just ends up sitting on the couch, and he does the finger bang, and then it's like you get this overhead shot in the building, just showing like the aftermath, the carnage of what's left, and it's like, what in the holy hell happened here? But the ending of the movie, is it redemption? Is it delusion? Or is it something even darker? Did Travis die? Like, we don't get confirmation on this. And the fact that he doesn't go to jail, it's like, Um, he literally walked into an apartment building. Whether these good or bad people or not, he literally walked into a building, killed 3 people, um, and everything, and he didn't get any jail time. He didn't get charged with anything. It's like, really? Like, so just because these are quote unquote, he got treated like a hero in a sense. But again, is this was this real or was this all in his head? Did he die on that couch and then this is just like what he envisioned at the end, like, or whatever? We never know. We just don't know, and it's like it's all up for interpretation. But I would love for you guys, the listeners, let me know, what do you think? So of course you can hit me up on the social medias, on Threads, JMT Podcast, wherever you listen to my podcast, a part of the TV Zone Podcast Network. Let me know, because even on Spotify you can comment below. YouTube, if you're listening on YouTube, definitely comment down below. What do you think? As far as the ending, was it real? Did Travis die? Like I said, let me know. Let me know what you think about the ending, and everything. And yeah, like I say, the ending is still is very. The ending kind of does itself because it's very much in your face, literally. You get shot 5-6 times in the face with a damn derringer and everything. And the fact the way it's cheap, the way they did that, it's always one like, how the hell did they do this and everything? But apparently, they had some stuff glued to his face, so as he was being shot, they start picking him off. So that's why his face moved the way it moved. But it just, it's one of those finales of a movie that you kind of have to just see it. I can explain it like how I've been explaining it, but it's something else to kind of see it play out. And the fact that the movie moves at not a lightning and fast pace. So that could be for anyone who's never seen it, and everything. If you're not really into slow moving movies because it's more of a character study, then the action, quote unquote, is very far in between each other. But it's like everything builds up to that final sequence. Like I say, from the point that he pulls up in that damn cab and is talking to Sport outside, until he goes and sits on that couch and starts doing the finger, like the finger, to the head with the blood dripping off his finger. It's just insanity. Like I said, it's entertaining to watch, yes, but still, it's just insanity that you're witnessing. So, let's talk about this is a little topic I want to bring up, and this is basically the dangers of romanticizing the loner. Movies like Taxi Driver are often misunderstood or misinterpreted. They kind of, people in a lot of cases, he was going through some things and, he's just a decent guy and blah, blah. No, Travis is not a good guy. He's not a decent guy and everything, because he initially wanted to kill a presidential candidate. And because plan A didn't go off, he resorted to plan B. But he's not what you say a good character. Look at how him and Betsy, look at all that, and everything. It's like he's not a good freaking guy. And everything. And then also too, of course this movie is famous, for Scorsese, Niro, young Jodie Foster and everything. Of course it's famous for being a movie, but it's also famous, unfortunately, for being where you had someone in real life who decided to try to imitate art, and everything with this movie in real life. And I'm talking about John Hinckley, who famously was a stalker of Jodie Foster. You watch the movie like 40 some odd times, and then he's basically like, you know what? I'm going to shoot President Reagan, and this will get you to notice me, and I guess blah, blah, blah. And yeah, John Hinckley shot President Reagan at the time, and then when he was captured, it was all known that he was basically like stalking Jodie Foster. Because around this time, I think she was in college or whatever. And yeah, he was writing her letters and all this type of nonsense. So here you had someone who, like, they thought that they were like Travis. And no one should ever try to be like Travis. Clearly, John Hinckley had some issues, and he was put to a mental hospital for a long time. I think he was released like either the end of 2015 or 2016 is when he was released. And who knows where he is now. But, movies like this, you kind of have to be careful of because there's going to be someone out there like a John Hinckley, I guess, and everything. And to kind of segue, let's talk about how Travis Bickle influenced modern cinema. I mean, movies like Drive, Joker, you would never really hear with Joaquin Phoenix. Ironically, two of these movies feature Joaquin Phoenix. And then The Place Beyond the Pines. I mean, movies like that about loners and people that's kind of outside of the status quo of things. This movie was like one of the first, if not the first, that kind of hinged on that in a way. Rolling Thunder is another movie. And everything, which is a very mad, underrated movie. And I think I actually, I did. No, I did. I reviewed this movie, I want to say almost like 2 years ago on the podcast. I reviewed it. But you could kind of say that those type of characters were influenced by what Travis Bickle as a character was, to a degree, and everything. So, I would say this. Let's talk about what works versus what challenges viewers. Like watching this back in the day, I think people had no problem. Their attention span was phenomenal. They sit and watch. But I think it's a little harder for people now to probably watch it because this is not a movie that you can just be on your phone and you just follow along everything that happens. Otherwise, you get lost and you be like, "What the hell is going on here? Why is there X, Y, Z? Blah blah blah." But I mean, even though it is a slow paced movie, but I still think if you're young and you wanna watch it, I do recommend. I do say that this is a movie worth watching. I mean, it's not one that you should watch like 20, 30 times or whatever, but it is definitely one worth watching because you get the discomfort and everything throughout the movie. You kind of feel dirty, you feel grimy, and I feel like that adds to what makes Taxi Driver what it is. But in no way, form, or fashion is it a movie that I think people should go like, yeah, and everything. I mean, the way it looks is not a flaw. It just shows like this is how things looked and felt at the time in New York. Um, and then too, like pretty much everybody in this movie is not what you say likable characters. Bessie is not a likable character. I mean, the closest probably to a likable character probably might be Albert Brooks, and he was freaking annoying in the damn movie. But yeah, this is not a movie where it's like, okay, such and such is a likable character. None of these people are likable people. To a degree, they're not likable people. And I think that kind of adds to what makes this movie what it is. It's not. Is you could almost say like, well, no, these people are not likable, but they do X, Y, Z, to a certain standpoint, or whatever. So again, circling back to why I decided to make Taxi Driver the first episode of the new year, like I said, it pretty much sets the tone for what I'm going to be doing movie wise for this month, and everything. And one thing about this movie and how it kind of connects to the next movie that I'm going to be doing is, your actions, pay, you kind of pay for the actions that you do, to a certain degree. Travis, like I say, is not a trustworthy narrator. So a lot of what happens to him, we don't know if that's fully in his head or just a little bit in his head. But the reason why the connection to the next movie about the choices that you make, um, will continue on with you. And that's because the next movie that I'll be doing for episode 364, and I'm talking about A Place Beyond the Pines, which is a movie that I wanted to do for some time now, and I'm finally getting around to doing it, and everything. But that's how it kind of connects to Place Beyond the Pines, as well as Drive. I mean, here you got a guy who is just, I just drive, type of thing, which Travis basically, I don't care what routes I take. I take the routes and take it all over. I go all over, type of thing. I just drive, pretty much. But yeah, I kind of wanted to start off a little heavy this week. Place Beyond the Pines, I think, is somewhat heavy as well. It's been a minute since I watched it, so I am looking forward to that again, and everything. But before I actually get up out of here, I have a few questions I would love to ask you guys, the listeners, and hopefully you will comment, because I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So, is Travis Bickle a victim, a villain, or is he both? Is he a victim, a villain, or is he both? Me, I feel like he's a bit of both. Like I say, unfortunately, he's suffering from PTSD, which is a bad thing. But at the same time, he's fully aware, for the most part, he's fully aware of what he's doing, and everything. But I would love to know what you guys think. Is he a victim, villain, or is he both? And what about the ending? Does the ending feel justified? Like, does it feel hopeful? Does it feel justified? Is it terrifying? Like, how do you guys feel about the end? I tell you how I feel about it, how I interpret everything. But I would love to know what you guys, the listeners, how do you guys feel about it? And then, has your view of the movie changed over time? For me, I would say that I've kind of paid more attention to the movie over the years. I wouldn't say my position necessarily changes about it. Is it a good movie? Yes. Is it a, movie that feels dirty? Yes, it does. And everything. But still, it's still worth a watch. I think anyone, if you consider yourself a movie watcher, and everything, like, yeah, you definitely should check this movie out, and everything. So that's pretty much it. I want to thank you guys for listening, as always. Great way to kick off the new year, because we are pushing on into 2026, and I have some things lined up for the podcast this year, because I am building towards something. So I'm going to tease you guys with something that is going to be leading up to an announcement that I'll be making, and everything like that. So yeah, I'm working my way towards that. I enjoy ending the year with the award show. Like I said, I kind of wish I would have did that a long time ago. I'm already getting myself ready, for this year to do the awards once again, and everything, because I had a lot of fun doing that episode. But yeah, next episode will be episode 364, where I do The Place Beyond the Pines, starring Ryan Gosling, Bradley Cooper, Ray Liotta, and everything like that. A very interesting movie, like I say, that I've kind of wanted to do for a while now, and I'm finally getting around to do it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So again, this month's theme, of course, is the loners, the outsiders, the drifters, and everything like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. I want to thank everyone for listening. Of course, you can find me all over social media, whether I'm on Threads, Facebook, Instagram at JMT Podcast, and of course, you can find this podcast part of the TV Zone Podcast Network. Wherever you listen to your podcast, type in TV Zone Podcast Network. You can find us like that. And of course, if you're listening on YouTube, the YouTube channel is J Movie Talk. You can find us like that and everything. yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you guys for listening once again, and I will be back next week for episode 364, where I'm talking The Place Beyond the Pines. Until next time, peace.